Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar, the topic for which is From Authority to Influence, Leveraging the Power of Strategic Leadership Communication. We thank you all for joining us today on a Saturday afternoon, and especially on a budget day, a day that we have all been waiting with bated breath. But anyway, to move on with today's conversation, I would add a few words about our speakers today, and also give you an introduction about what it is that we are going to talk about in today's webinar. In today's fast-paced world, the landscape of leadership is shifting dramatically. That is something that we are all aware of. It's no longer enough to simply hold authority. True leadership is about wielding influence that inspires and mobilizes others at the same time. And at the heart of this transformational leadership lies one critical skill, and that skill remains to be communication. Think about the leaders who have truly made an impact. They do not just issue directives, they tell compelling stories, they listen actively, and they connect authentically. Communication is the bridge that turns strategic vision into actionable reality. It's the tool that transforms a mere message into a movement. In essence, effective communication is the cornerstone of influence. In today's webinar, we are going to unpack some topics and some nuances of authority, leadership, communication, and how all of these are interrelated and dependent on each other. And we are also going to talk about how by mastering strategic communication, you can elevate your leadership from authoritative to an influential leader. We will explore how the way you convey your ideas can engage teams, foster innovation, and drive organizational success. In leadership, how you communicate can be just as important as the message itself. We are incredibly fortunate to have with us today our esteemed professors from IIM Calcutta, Professor Pragyan Rath and Professor Nandita Roy, who are specialists in this transformative field. Let me introduce you to them in short. Professor Pragyan Rath is an associate professor in the Business Ethics and Communication Group at IIM Calcutta. With a rich academic background and extensive experience, Professor Rath has dedicated her career to enhancing the communication skills of future leaders. Her expertise lies in advanced analytical skills, problem-solving techniques in corporate communication, and leadership communication. She brings a deep understanding of how strategic communications shapes decision-making and ethical leadership in today's corporate world, which is rapidly changing. Our second speaker, Professor Nandita Roy, is an assistant professor in the Business Ethics and Communication Group at IIM Calcutta. Holding a PhD in English literature, Professor Roy merges the art of storytelling with the science of management. She has taught courses like managerial communication, storytelling for management, and communication for management, etc. Her research work also delves deeper into various topics of interest like decolonizing feminist knowledge and examines modern dynamics like the influence of Kazakh influencer culture. Professor Roy possesses insights into how narratives and cultural contexts influence leadership communication. Together, Professor Rath and Professor Roy will provide all of us today valuable insights into how strategic leadership communication can be leveraged to move from authority-based leadership to influence-based leadership. We look forward to an engaging and enlightening session with Professor Pragyan Rath and Professor Nandita Roy. And without much further ado, let me hand over the forum to them. Thank you, professors.
Dr. Roy can lead the way. And thank you, Shreyashi.
Thank you very much, Shreyashi. And I was thinking Professor Rath would uh, lead the way. Welcome, everyone. What are we talking about today? The topic is from authority to influence, leveraging the power of strategic leadership communication. A lot of words, but words mean things. So, what is this? There's a sense of transition that one is talking about. That from we are assuming that people here are already in positions of authority, which means that they do hold some power, and from there, we are talking about a journey to becoming influential leaders. And how is this going to happen? Through strategic communication. Communication is, I think, again, it's in my opinion, misunderstood or over understood field, perhaps. What do we mean when we say strategic communication? Is it about talking? Because there's something that the one of the biggest reasons for communication, the way it is understood, is that it is a skill. It is about, if you can speak very well, you are good at communicating. But are you? I think these are answers we are still looking for. I am, for one. When we talk about this journey, it is basically about trying to understand what underlines communication, because we speak so many words, we say things. um, what do we really mean? What are the other things that are constantly intersecting? So that's why I think Professor Rath and I are both interested in something called narratives. What are the narratives that are constantly inflecting and intersecting the things that we speak about? It's interesting to note that what we try to do here at IIM Calcutta is, there is, we often speak of differentiation. And I would want to say that the differentiation here is we are trying to move beyond this lens of communication just as a skill, that can be, the language skills, moving beyond that and getting to understand underlying narratives, ideas, discourses, which inflect our businesses, our lives. I don't know much about business, but that is something that I think we'll get to learn from you. To conclude, perhaps I would say that this whole thing about strategic communication, understanding narratives, it has become sector agnostic. It doesn't matter what you are doing. It doesn't matter whether you are in finance, or you are in supply chain management, or you're doing marketing, or like us, you are professing on a Saturday afternoon. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It is essential to understand, especially in a world which, and we keep talking about, and maybe if the conversation goes there, we'll talk about, we say that this is a post-truth world. So what does truth mean? What are the narratives around us? So to understand ourselves, the world around us, and our work, it is immensely important that we delve slightly deeper into these ideas. So that's just a broad introduction, and perhaps Professor Rath can.
Uh, uh, Thank you, Dr. Roy, and thank you, BC Now, and welcome to everybody who's part of this webinar. Just following up with whatever Dr. Roy mentioned now. Since we are talking about communication, and we are talking about influence, and we are talking about leadership, I'll just kind of talk about the technicalities of communication uh, as a practice that's happening everywhere. And as Dr. Roy very rightly said, or at least I would like to believe what she said, that is, at least I'm in the common pool of agreement in that, and which is that communication is agnostic to any industry or any particular sector, of course. Uh, Taking that forward, I would just add a little bit of the technicalities of leadership communication and what we intend to uh, bring forward in terms of practice. Is that if you want to be a really, really good communicator, and as Dr. Roy said again, it's not really about talking really well and talking good English or that language part. And of course, it is language. The language of leadership has much more to do than just the grammar and the language of languages. That it's not about just being very good in Telugu or very good in Spanish or very good in English or Bengali, of course, right? Or any other language. It is more about, if we bring in the business angle, the the language of the market. That is why the word strategy. And the moment we bring in the language of the market, of course, there is an added understanding that there is something called economics, because market essentially also means there is a certain space for the concept of profit, in whichever way you want to look at profit. And then there is a space for organizations, and then there are organizations have verticals, verticals have stakeholders, and then you have industries, and you have larger market trends, you have mega trends, you have trends, and you have disruptions, and you have agilities, and you have all kind of practices happening. And it is in this larger condition in which you are communicating, and that is again influencing. And what we mean here, influencing, is both mass market influence and micro influence. So strategy becomes very important. And what we mean by strategy here is that it is not essentially spontaneous communication, it is research. You actually research, you must be a good market researcher to actually do good communication in that space. So it's planned, if I may use the word predetermined, it's thought through, analyzed. So there's a lot of analysis and analytics in it, right? That is why you have analytics to develop a certain language of communication, because there is a purpose to it. And the purpose essentially is that, of course, you want to influence the market. So whenever it's about moving from just authority to actually something called influence. So influence will have a lot of nudge factors, if I may use the word nudge, because you might be in a position of power where you can put a gunpoint on somebody and say, go and do it. Or you might have to influence where you cannot use a gunpoint, and you'll have to work on a larger consumer belt, and make them feel the need to move in a certain direction, because that direction is important for them and of course for you. So if I locate our webinar and the discipline in which both of us are researching and attempting to share our contributions and also learn from you, because most of you, actually all of you, come from various industrial sectors, is the language of leadership here is actually the language of the market, and communication here is more strategized, because you thought through, you researched, and you figured out, and then you plan your communication, and then you deliver. So in order to do that, there are several verticals in communication itself. See, communication is just a larger canopy word. There are so many sub belts under that, if I may use the word sub belts or subcultures within that. So of course, the larger dimension is communication strategies, but within that, I think Dr. Roy will agree with me. It's an over abused word, but nevertheless, the word is very, very important. There is this emergence of what you call, he said, narratives. We always say narratives. The industry loves the word stories, right? So, what is your story? What is a financial story? What is an operations story? Or what is the marketing story? Or what is the story? Personal stories are becoming so important now. So, tell me your story, or your story, my story, her story, his story, of course, their story. All the pronouns also are significant here. So storytelling also is a specialized tool in terms of delivering strategically to a market and influencing. So that is one aspect. Of course, the other is with your digital platforms coming in, and I can already see somebody in the chat has written about leadership style is essential in the era of digital revolution and openness. I think somebody, Rashmi, has written that. So when you're coming to digital and digital platforms, again, communication has to be merged with the requirements of the platform and the consumers who come to the platform. So digital communication becomes again an interesting space. Again, a very, very different space to discuss. Not just that, then you have something called, there's been this traditional understanding of communication being, whenever you ask what are the kinds of communication, people always keep saying, oh, there are two kinds, which is verbal and non-verbal. I will add visual as well nowadays, which is verbal, which is non-verbal, which is visual. They all get merged together, and what you see is what you I won't say what you get. What you see is what you can diagnose further, or interpret further, or analyze further. And consumers are interpretive now. They do analyze. Um, so the visual language also becomes important in terms of, visually what you are presenting, from your websites to your Insta reels, to your Insta reels and stories is a different thing, but also the visual part, right? Or the culture industry and the kind of visuals it's bringing in. um, Apart from that, of course, traditional conflict management is significantly important. There's nothing traditional about it, because um, it's traditional, it's modern, and as well as it's current, contemporary, and it'll always be there, because the whole point about management is you manage problems. We are problem solvers. That's what is supposedly the basic definition of managers and consultants. So problem solving, which means conflicts, and how do you handle conflicts, which means cross different stakeholders. That again is a varied aspect that too needs studying and understanding. And how do you then deliver to influence? Again, negotiations is a very, very important part, because we are all in the practice of negotiating. So we are bargaining, or we say trade-offs, or we talk about, coming to common page, or we are trying to influence somebody else to, break the deal, or cut the deal, or lose the deal, or whatever it is. So negotiations again is a very significant part of the larger understanding of communication. Not just that, you have something called transmedial. Again, transmedial, see, it's now intersections of media. Forget about intersections of discipline, or you're transitioning from one media to the other, and there's more to it. So what happens to the nature of communication once that transition is happening? That again is another very, very specific uh, space, the very targeted research done in that space. A very, very interesting component of communication is, of course, the larger field of gamification. Everything is gamified. Or Dr. Nandita Roy always tells me there's nothing outside of a game. I still feel I'm outside of it, but she can really, really prove how everybody, knowingly or unknowingly, is in the game of things. And in the game of things, you again have a lot of narratives, and gamification start becoming a very, very significant, not start, they've always been, and even more now, um, is another essentially important area. And if I'm not wrong, finally, we are all into LLMs, generative AI, language models, and how they are, providing answers. So, what do we do with those kinds of answers? How do we use them? How do we critique them, or how do we add a little more of our own spin to them, or do we completely stay away from them? The last part may be very, very difficult, but when can we stay away and when we cannot, is another larger space to discuss. So just to give you a very varied space of communication, I just forgot one of the most traditional components of communication: persuasion and argumentation, of course. Bottom line, we are talking about influence. So of course, how do you persuade? Persuade is almost, it's not almost, it's actually, if you really think about it, it's converting somebody from X to Y, almost like a religious conversion. So that is a nice thing to do or a bad thing to do, but we do it. Corporate communication has a lot to do with persuasion, which is part of influencing. The other is argumentation. Argumentation is, how do you again move from one point of view to the other? That too is a very, very essential part for good communication. Good communicators generally, ideally, should be arguing meaningfully, or well, or profitably. So I think I've kind of covered the larger subsets, and then again over to Dr. Roy to add more light or whatever else to the conversation.
Yeah, more or less, that's an overview of the course. I think we also have another important aspect is intercultural communication, where you are conversing, you're in conversation with other cultures. How do you negotiate that? How do you deal with that? Um, so there are multiple aspects. What Professor Rath was just explaining is that There are multiple aspects under this broad umbrella term, which is communication. And when we talk about strategies, even there are multiple spaces. Look at the different spaces. There's digital, there's AI, there's gamification, there's trans, and then sometimes the different formats of media, they intersect with each other. Each medium also contributes to how communication happens. And if you actually sit and think about it a little bit, um, what we often, what we desire, what we want, all of these are, in a broader sense, also a function of what is communicated to us or how we see things around us. For example, I would perhaps ask you, why are you here? Why not take a nap on a Saturday afternoon? The weather in Calcutta is always very giving, as they say, for a nap. Why are you here? Because you desire something. Either you want to know a little more about the program, or you want to see what is this whole, this whole IIM, ABC, this thing is about. All of these are actually, these are narratives. You want to, what you want, what you desire, what you and how you also articulate that desire becomes a function of all these things. Influence, what you're saying, argumentation is not just taking a stand and saying that, okay, I disagree with you and we are indifferent. The point is, can you push someone a little? Can you, push is a bad word, influence is the word we use. Communication is a very manipulative discipline. And it is, and I think what we also do is we go beyond. It's like, if you imagine just looking beyond the veil a little. There are a lot of things. So you listen to a song, you watch a video, and you find that person dancing in the video very attractive. Done. Communication has happened. Mass media and mass culture has sent you a message. You have heard it. Done. But is that only it? What we try to do is to lift the wheel a bit and look at underlying structures and frameworks that influence the way we think. And once we understand those, sometimes maybe we can use those said structures and frameworks to influence others. And it is increasingly becoming a critical uh, thing in leadership, particularly. Because if you think about it, today, just go to ChatGPT. If you have to write an email, it will write a decent email. But are we stochastic parrots? Do you want to be a stochastic parrot? Is the question. It will write something for you, but a lot will depend on the prompt that you give. There is sometimes, there's always an objective function of why you are saying certain words. Why are we exchanging so many words here? Because we want you to join this program, right? It's a webinar for a program at IIM Calcutta. So what I'm trying to say is, try to think beyond just the message, and we try to understand underlying structures, underlying frameworks, and to learn a little bit from them. So again, over to Professor Rath.
Uh, Mr. Pulak, would you
Yeah,
want to?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would like to add here. And I think, culminating down to all these pointers, I think we never realized that communication can be so broad as a thought process. We always thought that communication is just bare minimum communication. It's how you communicate in English, right? But never was communication explored in such a big way until leadership, the core leadership of today demanded for it. And I think the way we are going, all these effective tools, like the nudge theory, your persuasion, your intercultural business communication, how you present data to the audience, your communication analytics, sales pitch, everything becomes a part of your larger communication framework wherein you can excel as a leader. And I think I don't have any hesitation in saying that both Professor Roy and Professor Rath has been, kind of super specialist into these areas in terms of communication. They're one of the finest faculties at IIM Calcutta, and dealing into business communication predominantly. And already 5 batches have been successfully delivered for the executive program in communication strategies for corporate leaders. So we already have a book by this name, which is already available in the market, also authored by Professor Pragyan. And this book is openly available in Amazon and other areas also, and it will be a part of the program itself. So your entire content and everything will be a larger part of the program itself, which both Professor Pragyan and Professor Nandita Roy would take you through. Uh, so I think we need to know about the framework of this program. This is the sixth cohort, which is going to be built right now. We are already in the admission process, and we have just a few days left in terms of admission cycle. And we thought that this webinar was essential to kind of address an audience and to make them know that what exactly it contains and how it can be leveraged by today's corporate leaders. The profiles of past batches have been very, very, kind of elite. Uh, uh, you know, uh, all these profiles were personally handpicked by Professor Pragyan and Nandita, predominantly because they always thought that, only by mere application, we would not accept the applications. We would also have a assessment, personal assessment over a video call, just to understand the other side of the audience, and the interested participant who wants to join in the program. So resulting into a excellent batch dimensioning of people coming in from diverse fields, and I think already both professors have said that this the communication strategy is industry agnostic, and it doesn't really matter that from which industry you are coming from, but communication is an essential tool that is required for today. The only good thing that happens in a diverse batch, wherein people come from various fields, various geographies, various industries, various profiles, whether it is sales, operations, or anything, and they kind of funnel down into a single program, is peer learning. So while the professors also deliver their part, there is a contributory element that also comes in from each individual, wherein everybody goes into a learning process from each of their diverse portfolios and industries. And I think that's the key essence of this program, and that has been the key essence of this program. So I think without extending it further, I think I can request possibly Shivani and Sheshi to go through the structure of the program for the audience so that they are aware about what exactly it entails, and what are the key timelines through which the admission process goes. And I would like to thank Professor Pragyan and Professor Nandita to encapsulate the essence of the program in such a good way. And I think uh, we know that possibly these are elements which cannot be ignored. So if you have a MBA, if you already have an MBA with you, you have done higher education, but still you are not really efficient with your communication skill sets and the nuances of communication, you might not be at the best level in your ladder of growth. And I think summing up there, Sheshi, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes. So let me also provide you with some basic information about the program, that is the Executive Program in Communication Strategies for Corporate Leaders. Professor Nandita Rath and Professor Pragyan Rath, sorry, I'm so sorry. I kind of mixed that up a bit. Perils of communication, I would say. Professor Nandita Roy and Professor Pragyan Rath are the program directors for this particular program. This is the sixth cohort, which is about to commence in the month of March this year. But we have very limited seats available. The last date to apply is definitely looming at large. It's a program of 6 months duration, and the eligibility to join the program is graduation or post-graduation with a minimum 50% marks. And definitely, you should also possess 8 years of work experience. That makes you eligible to apply for the program. And of course, as we mentioned sometime earlier today, there would also be a round of personal interaction wherein the program directors themselves, they would uh, have an interaction with you and understand your motivation for joining the program. What is it that you're looking for? What is it that you are also bringing to the table? Because we feel the cohort itself is a big takeaway from each of these programs and these cohorts, right? Moving on, the mode of delivery for this program is live online, direct to device, which means essentially you can access the classes from the comfort of your home or your office. We're assuming since it's a Saturday, it should be your home, and you can access the classes from your laptop or your desktop. There would also be two campus immersions during the 6 months of the course of 3 days and 4 days duration, respectively. So that makes it about 7 days of campus immersion in the 6 months of the program. The session is conveniently timed. I'll just hide this window. Yes. So the session is conveniently timed from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on every Saturday for 6 months. At the end of the program, you would be awarded with a certificate of completion provided you submit all the assignments or attend all the classes, at least a percentage of those classes, because the knowledge that is going to be shared here is largely interactive. It's highly interactive. You interact with the faculty, you interact with your cohort members as well. It would also provide you with an alumni status. You would be awarded with the IIM Calcutta Executive Education Alumni status once you complete this program. The program fee is 3,30,000 plus GST, payable in 3 installments. In case if any of you want to understand in details, we would definitely be connecting with each of you post the webinar, wherein you can speak to our senior academic advisors. I have with me Shivani Sharma here today, who is also going to connect. I would be sharing her contact details as well. If you have any queries at the end of today's session, you can also reach out to her directly. Moving on, this is what the certificate would look like, the certificate of completion. If you have completed the executive program in communication strategies for corporate leaders, this is what you would be awarded with. This is just a sample for you, but this is what it would look like definitely. Moving on. Sorry. Yeah. So we would not go into the details of the programs at this point because it has a lot to it, and individual attention to each of the modules is what would be required. And our team of advisors, led by Shivani Sharma, would definitely help you with the details of the programs and the final nuances of what the program entails. As I mentioned, the program is commencing in March 2025. We do have limited seats available. You have on screen the one of the past cohorts of EPCSCL, and we try to keep optimum numbers in the batch given the nature of the program and the nature of the knowledge that is being shared. We would also be sharing the online application link with you. Yeah, there is no need to copy anything from here. We would be connecting with you individually. We would be sharing the details. And now you have on screen the contact details of Shivani Sharma. You can please note down the numbers. Shivani would request you to also share the numbers in the chat box for ease of the audience today. And for any individual queries that you may have, you can reach out to her as well. Today also post the discussion that we are having as a part of the webinar, we would be having a short Q&A session. If you have any specific queries which you would want to share with the program directors, we would be having a short window wherein you can share your questions as well. I would just stop the screen share at this point.
Yashi,
And
can we just show them the key headers that is being covered in the program?
definitely, I would share another document. So just allow me a minute's time. I will stop this screen share as of now.
Meanwhile, if any of you have any questions, you can post it on the chat. I think I already see a question here from Pankaj. Apart from gamification, do the course covers AI relevance in communication? Uh, Professor Pragyan, Professor Roy?
Yeah. Yes, we do have sessions which are In this particular program, you'll have faculty not just from the communication group at IIMC, but from different disciplines coming in and delivering the lectures. So we have someone from management information systems who is very much in the thick of things when it comes to AI and LLM. And we have some sessions which are specifically designed to talk about AI relevance in communication and how to use it and how to use it properly. That's all I would say. And in fact, because it is such a it's all that everyone is talking about, it's the trending thing. And you will find it's not just in the dedicated AI and communication module, but across you will have case studies, references where different faculty will be talking about AI. So, for example, I can speak for gamification, where we talk about certain frameworks. There's something called the octalysis framework that we discuss, and AI, the whole large language model thing is recent. But if you look at video games have been using AI and in game design for decades, right? So we bring that history, we chart that as well a little bit. So yes, to answer in a very short answer is yes, it does cover AI relevance in communication. If Professor Rath wants to add something.
No, this is good to go. Any other questions?
Yes, so this is what the program entails. As I mentioned earlier, I mean, each and
Sorry
every
to
module.
interrupt you, Sreshi. I think you need to zoom out a bit because I can't see it.
Okay,
It's
sorry. This is, I think, too small now.
I think you need to.
Give me a moment. Sorry about that. One second.
If you want, we can also. I can share the screen.
Oh,
Take you through.
that's fine. I think this will work now. Is this better or is it too big?
Yeah, I think you can scroll down and go through it. Yeah.
Yes, I think I will do that. This is, I mean, this way. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So these are some of the modules. These are the basic module names here on screen that you can see. So the first module definitely is leading with communication strategy, wherein you would be introduced to the whole concept of the program, what it entails, and definitely some introductory details would be given to you. Then we have sales pitch through impactful argumentation. You can learn to use a nudge factor from the domain of behavioral economics as communication converters. We just touched upon the nudge factor in today's discussion some time back. We also have public speaking, which is crafting a contemporary public narrative, which will enable you as a leader to be an effective public speaker in keeping with your requirements from the audience and the audience's nature. We have leveraging digital communication for leaders, which helps you to strategize your digital presence to ensure that you gain the impact that you're looking for. We have intercultural business communication, which is self-explanatory. Nowadays, a lot of us, a lot of you would definitely be working with people from different cultures and different geolocations. This gives you some essential toolkits which will be helpful for you in your day-to-day work. We have data presentations wherein we look at ways and means of telling a story through the presentations that we have to go through on a regular basis. As far as our job responsibility is concerned, we do present a lot of data to a lot of different audiences. What is the best way to do it? And what is the best way to present the data in a way which enables you to drive forward your impact on the audience? We have leaders as conflict processors, conflict resolution and negotiation. We have storytelling in the digital era. We have communication analytics, which is visual communication trends. It adopts a neoclassical approach in analyzing visual data and the larger pool of data analytics for business investigations, a very important topic for senior corporate people. Somebody mentioned some time back if we have some element of AI, which is part of the program module. Definitely, we understand how AI can impact our communication styles and channels. It is affecting a lot of us. We have a lot of apps which we are using, and to what extent should we be using it, and how to gain the maximum out of it without diluting your impact and your communication styles. That definitely would be a big part of this particular module. I'm scrolling further down. We have gamification. Of course, Professor Roy spoke about gamification some time back. So overall, these are the basic modules which would be a part of the program. And let me also touch upon the fact that there would be a total 7 days of on-campus modules, So wherein there would be group activities, there would be a lot of in-person classes, and there would be a lot of information dissemination even amongst the cohort. I would stop the screen share and I would request Professors Roy and Rath to mention some other pointers if they want to. I'll stop my screen share as of now.
Thank you, Shayashi, and Mr. Pulak as well. Just to add another point here regarding the behavioral economics part, which was brought in as far as nudge is concerned. So, of course, that also looks at, how do you do pitches for different kinds of audiences, which means there's a certain understanding of an audience profile, just to add to the other element as well. Dr.
Yes.
Roy, anything else? Mhm.
I think we have a, if you allow
Question
me,
by
We
Pankaj.
have a question, yes. Can I just read the question out for the benefit of the audience as well? So Pankaj Malhotra asks a question, data analytics has key relevance in communication. Will that be forming a part of the lectures or case studies? That is the question that he has fielded.
I'll pick that up. Yes, in a certain way, and no, in a certain way. Yes, because it'll be looking at market trends, narrative trends. So, in that capacity, yes, there is the data is going to be communication, and you are going to analyze it. So, in that capacity, yes.
And to add to it, we also have this module on data storytelling,
Yeah.
where we specifically look at, because uh, data storytelling happened today with the budget, right? That is data storytelling. Someone is uh, giving you a lot of numbers and things, but look at the various interpretations of the budget. So now all evening there will be multiple interpretations of the same budget, right? So, what does this mean? It means that what we think of how we usually approach data, we kind of hierarchize information. We think that data is truth. Numbers are only speaking the truth, facts. But is that all? Right? So, data storytelling tries to understand numbers not merely from the perspective that whatever numbers are there, they are all true, but how do you use numbers to persuade, to prove your point? The same data can be used for five different types of pitches. The same data set can be used to tell three or four or n number of different stories. So that is something that we will also explore in the course.
great, I think.
May I also, may I also request the audience to raise their hands if they have any specific questions? So that can also be taken live. If any of you have any queries that you want to ask for, from the professors, you may please raise your hand and we will try to get them answered. Yes, please continue.
This is also a very important aspect of communication, which is utter silence.
As well as live classes, I would say.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think if anyone is having any specific question which they want our esteemed faculties to answer, it could be related to the program or it could be related to the general aspects of communication. Please do raise your hand and you can ask, unmute and speak, right? I mean, else you have the chat option also. So whichever is comfortable to all of you.
So let me, while we wait for people to take some action and communicate with us, may I ask, Professor Roy and Professor Rath to, throw some light on the future trends and, how it's going to, impact strategy communication and leadership as you were speaking, because we have been through a lot of new concepts which are coming up, which a lot of people are really inquisitive about and they want to know more of. So if there is anything which is relevant to today's topic which you want to touch upon briefly, we would love to hear you talk on these lines.
I'll follow Dr. Roy. You can.
Um,
Yeah,
so,
ma'am. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Nilmani Datta.
hello.
Yeah,
Still
no,
money.
yeah, actually, okay, whatever that, no, it is related. Yeah, it is related to that, whatever training and other things. But I have some, no, whenever I see Narendra Modi speaking or maybe na Benji, that Trump is speaking, or if you can see any Lalu Prasad Yadav is also speaking. Okay, now how they communicate without going for any training sessions. What
How
is
do you
your
know?
explanation on that?
How do you know that they have not gone for training sessions? There are people writing the speeches. It is not all impromptu.
No, no, it is in somewhere they are not going or they are not getting some before somewhere, no, before any kind of lecture. I believe that they give some kind of spontaneous, no, they are. I think that communication is your emotion. It should come from your inner emotions. That kind of thing they believe, or maybe they are mass communicator, born leaders. So they have a different no, perspective about communication. They know who was their audience basically.
That's a very
So
interesting question, actually.
yeah,
But for yes, Professor Rath, over to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to take up your question,
yeah,
going with your assumption that they've had no training, that's what you feel. Of course, they have corporate trainers, but let's go with your assumption they've never had any training. They just can spontaneously talk and with their emotions. So let me just bring this surprising fact, if it is surprising for you. Emotion is also a data, all right, and a data point that can be studied and researched. And if they have been intuitively been good at doing that, I would also say that there has been a certain amount of research in which they've built their emotion. This has a backing if you want more newer kind of communication strategies brought in. There are studies in anthropology which do talk about, the unconscious emotions playing a big role in influencing. So there is can be studied.
yeah.
So that
That
you have to
okay.
join
I
the
understood. That is
program
means
to.
yeah. Already that means you are studying that kind of communications. Already it is already in the place. Just like
No, no,
Sachin
no, no, no,
Tendulkar, na Sachin
no, no, no,
Tendulkar
no.
bats the the way he bats. But then we
Mm-hmm.
explain that now whatever explanation comes after that, after na batting. So it's a
Okay,
yeah,
I get your point. The whole
yeah,
concept of strategy and analysis is there are
yeah,
some people who've done it intuitively, right? If you
yeah,
want to wait for intuition to come, well and good. This is to tell you that from people who've done it intuitively, you can be more conscious of it and can actually apply it in certain similar circumstances where returns are possible.
yeah. Maximum returns are there in profit. If you can na give some kind of communication, that profit you have
Yes.
use the word profit in that na communication. So they
See,
have encased the
Mr.
maximum
Modi
profit
and
of their
Trump have
basic.
also been, I'm sure Mr. Modi and Trump are also gaining profits. If not, you wouldn't be naming them. So I agree with you that they are intuitive, but I'm
Yeah,
saying when somebody else is intuitive and suppose we aren't, good to learn from them.
No. That
Yeah.
it is not that. It is just it was my some kind of
Sure,
study or
sure.
what is there.
So
That
that
is
was an
the
interesting question. That was an interesting question, Mr. Datta, and thank you for sharing the question.
yeah.
It's an interesting topic to touch upon. I
Thank you.
think we should also give a chance to the other questions
Thank
that we have in the chat box. And thank you so much once again for that question of yours. We have two questions in the chat box, professors. I'll just repeat the first one. Rashmi Mohapatra asks a question of how to communicate with silo leaders. That's her question. We seem to be having a lot of
Silo leaders.
yes.
Who are
Silo
these
leaders.
leaders? I'm assuming now that Rashmi means that these are leaders who are only
Closed
working
off, I
in their own
suppose.
silos. They don't want to communicate, perhaps. Um, I cannot, off the top of my head, think of examples of leaders who have risen up to important leadership positions by remaining in silos. At one point, it is so. See, communication also, think of it. Now, let's move beyond, management, etc. Let's just think in terms of evolution. Professor Rath was just mentioning anthropology, an interesting question about intuition, right? Communication for our species wasn't is still perhaps an evolutionary necessity. If we why did we invent complex systems such as languages? Why do human beings do art? Why did early humans start painting, putting things on the walls of the caves? Because one, we want to somehow say that, it's a very human thing to try and say that we were here and it mattered a bit. And apart from that, the basic thing, let's say, what kind of superpowers did we have? No brute strength, no big horns, no sharp teeth. How did we become the apex species of the planet? That's why I said communication was an evolutionary necessity for us. So if there is a bison outside and I'm in a cave, I can't go alone and hunt the bison. I have to ensure that five other people go with me. Convincing, persuasion. That's where it starts. So formation of groups. We talk so much about. So you mentioned some leaders. Think about it. How old is the oldest country? The idea of the nation. These big things like nation, family, love, these big concepts that govern our lives, right? All of it, it was necessary that we invent them to survive. That's why perhaps leadership and silo leadership sounds kind of like a paradox to me, an interesting paradox. I would perhaps want to know more about it. But you will see that people in important leadership positions, you might not like it. Trust me, there are days that I feel like, okay, I don't want to speak, but it is a necessity. Even if you don't like it, you have to do it. And if you don't have the magic and the intuition, then there is the science, perhaps the strategy and the data, which will help you communicate, right? Um, yeah.
We have another question. So this is related to something that happened here today. I think Mr. Srinivasan Rao has alluded to that. Like we have silence in terms of feedback slash questions, what and how would you suggest organizations to do to get the feedback or response to their communications? Secondly, how to clearly attach an intent or purpose of the communication? That is the question that he has fielded.
Right.
Well,
Thank you, Shreyashi. I'm sorry, Nandita, you want to go ahead?
no, I just wanted to say it will require 3 classes to explain.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Just a very, if I can do it in 2 lines, not the classes, just to give you, since he's asked for intent. So, Mr. Srinivasan, right? If
Yes.
there's silence, one of the ways of doing it is consensus building. So, you have to get into groups on that is where we are coming in with negotiations and conflict management and things like that. So there are ways of doing that. And the other is clearly attach intent and purpose of the communication. That's the whole point of strategic communication. So in the classes on strategic communication, there we will discuss how to clearly attach intent and purpose of the communication. So it's not answering your question in terms of giving you the vivid answer, but there are processes to work around your questions. That's the point. So
Shravani,
Srinivasan,
uh, what is the communication done by a leader who is not able to speak or hear? There are other
We are, we
language.
are, we are having too many questions of silent leaders.
Silos and silent leaders, it seems. While on the other end of the spectrum, we have
That's contrary to
opposite people.
what the world looks like, But anyway, I think that's interesting to respond to all of that.
Yes.
There are other languages, so there is sign language, and sometimes a lot of communication can also happen through actions. Communication can also it is language is one of the tools of communication. So if you cannot speak, there are other things that you can do, which perhaps communicate even louder. Actions speak louder than words. Remember in school, we used to be taught
Absolutely.
all of this. Uh,
Absolutely.
Pankaj has another question, I believe, for.
So he has just mentioned something. I believe for a good communication, knowledge of subject or content is essential, no matter who you are and how you want to structure this. One need to learn from Mr. Modi. Okay.
I
That is
think
his
that's an
opinion.
opinion. So
Yes,
yeah.
that's an opinion that he has shared, not a question per se.
okay, Pankaj is actually not silent today. He's the one who's talking. If I'm not wrong,
He
this
had
is same
asked a
Pankaj.
question earlier.
Yes. So I believe for a good communication, knowledge of subject or content is essential, no matter who you are. Of course. And if you don't, you at least have a team who knows it. So there are many ways of doing that, right? So basic, you will have a certain idea, but also nowadays you have corporate communication teams to do that for you. And how do you want to structure this? One need to learn from Mr. Modi. Well, we learn in the program, not just from Mr. Modi, and I can tell you for sure, Mr. Modi has had a great team to do the marketing for whatever emotional talking he's done. Um, he's had, it's a pretty well known fact, he's had a good team, something called political marketing. They have done a lot of research. Harshvardhan, how do you suggest to use silence as wow as best tool in certain circumstances? Please
Here we are
elaborate.
talking about communication and we have a lot of silence also.
Silence is a big language, and it can be done to project a certain kind of impact in certain negotiations. When you're silent, the other opponent gets confused. Or in certain places, Harshvardhan, like I'm answering your question, what if I say something like how? So Harshvardhan asks this amazing question and then I'm silent. So again, what happens is there's a certain kind of reaction where you would be wondering what I'm doing. So these silences can also be very strategized and positioned in speeches. They're called pauses or pregnant silences. Where it has impact in silencing the other audience, or it has impact in overpowering the other audiences. So silences are sometimes used amazingly well in argumentation as well. So Harshvardhan's silence has a big language and is used very, very strategically. So any other silent question from anybody else?
Would you like to, I would rather rephrase that. Would you like to communicate any further nuances of silence today? Yeah. All right. Yes. So, okay. So one final call for any questions that you might have, jokes apart. I mean, we had an engaging conversation. I think that is what we were all looking forward to. And we have shared a lot of insights on the topic of discussion today. And we have shared some details of the program as well. We are going to connect with you individually as well, as I mentioned. Shivani Sharma's contact number has been shared in the chat box earlier. Shivani would request you to please share it once again, now that we are towards the end of the webinar. Anybody who wants to take it down may please do so. We will be connecting with you. And over to the other speakers on the forum today.
I think one key aspects of the way forward for any of the aspirants who are eager to join this unique program is that you need to apply online. There's an online application link which we will share with you after this session is over. You'll receive a communication mail, or our team will also get in touch with you, guiding you on the next steps. And once you apply online, your application will be forwarded to the esteemed program directors for review. And then on a suitable day, you'll be called for a one-on-one interaction with Professor Roy or with Professor Rath at any suitable point in time. And post their selection process is over, you will be offered a offer letter through which you can make the initial payment of the first installment and join the program. The program commencement is during Shivani, this commencing in March, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So right.
Yes.
So we would definitely have limited seats in this program, and so the earlier you apply is better. Please touch base with Shivani. The Shivani's number is also flashing here on the chat screen. You can note it down. And I would like to thank Professor Rath and Professor Nandita Roy for their valuable time on this Saturday evening. Uh, they're extremely busy. I would vouch on that and tell you. And they're fully engaged at the institute at IIM Calcutta with the other programs. But we would like to thank them for today's session, sparing their more than an hour's time in enlightening us all for today's session. Thank you so much, professors, and thank you, audience, for coming in today. And I'm sure you would have had a good kind of knowledge session today. So let's hope that we see you joining this program very soon for excellent progress together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, professors. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.